Hello, I'm Cath Lloyd from Make the Change. Thank you for joining me to learn some more self-help tips on being happier, stronger and more fulfilled. And I've wanted to make this recording as informative and as useful as I can. So I will be asking some thought-provoking questions. So feel free to simply pause the recording so that you can make some notes along the way. Now, before we really get into the self-help tips, I just wanted to spend a little time giving you more of an insight into me, Cath Lloyd, and why I feel I'm able to speak to you about this subject matter. I've been blessed with having very caring and loving parents. They both had good careers, and so money wasn't an issue, and I had a good education, even though I found the academic side of school very difficult. But I had good holidays, spent time with my grandparents and other family members, and had a good circle of friends. So you might be wondering where the issue is here. Well, I was brought up with good moral values around working hard, respecting others, caring and being kind to others, and basically around preserving life. But I was never taught how to be honest with myself, that it was others who I had to consider first and foremost. And unfortunately, you don't really find out the implications of these things until you're older, when you go through a period of time when you're struggling to come to terms with maybe things that have happened in the past. And when it does hit you, it's often like someone has bashed you over the head and it stops you dead in your tracks, that instead of moving forwards you feel at a standstill, or even worse, feel as if you're moving backwards. And this happened to me about 6 years ago, when I felt as if things weren't right. I wasn't entirely sure what it was, and I couldn't put my finger on it until one day when I struggled into work, and a wonderful colleague of mine called Judy met me on the car park and asked me a very simple question that you get asked every day. And that question was, how are you? Just have a little think about how many times you've asked that question and how many times you've answered it. Well, that day it felt like the worst possible question that anybody could have asked me, because I just couldn't keep it together any longer, and I felt as if I'd gone into meltdown, and basically I couldn't stop crying. But it was this day that Judy packed me off home and helped me to start taking the control back into my life. And with the help of a few counselling sessions, it soon became apparent that I couldn't change the past. I couldn't change how my parents had reacted to me, what they said or felt, and the complications in their lives. But what I could change was what I was going to do with all these feelings and emotions that had been swirling around inside of me for so long. And this meant I had to start being totally honest with myself. Now, this sounds mad, but just have a little think about, how honest are you with yourself? Do you feel you could communicate better with yourself? I'm sure we all have times in our lives when we've had an argument with someone, or you didn't get the grades or the job you wanted, and in the heat of the moment and with the emotions attached to the situation, you've pointed the blame at somebody else, the organisation or the system. And the reason why we do this, because it's hard to admit to ourselves that actually it was our fault, that we were in a bad mood, we'd had a difficult day, we got soaked to the skin in the rain waiting for the bus, or you didn't prepare for the interview or the exam as well as you should have done. And it's easy to blame that third party, especially when they're not there to defend themselves. However, being totally honest with yourself will actually allow you to step back from the situation, take a deep breath and see it for what it actually is. Yes, I had a bad day. I had let things get on top of me because it didn't go according to plan, and I ended up in a row because I couldn't control my feelings with whoever that might be. However, when they asked me a legitimate question, yes, I lost control. So just have a look at the image in the bottom of the slide. What do you see? Do you see the young lady or the old lady? I always see the young lady, and it's taken me a lot of practice to work out how to see the old lady. And the more I do this, the easier it becomes. And life is similar to this. Looking at it from a variety of viewpoints, we'll begin to see something different. And it's about being responsible and taking accountability for our actions. Until we do this, we can't totally address all of the other steps that are needed in developing our self-worth and self-belief and moving forwards in our lives. I've been a teacher for around 25 years now in adult education, and I started off in ceramics and general art and design, and then moved into the personal social development skills area, where now I teach effective thinking groups. And I say to the groups that this is only going to work if they are prepared to be totally honest with themselves. Some do and some don't. But the ones who do, I start to see a noticeable difference in them. They are happier coming to class. They are listening more intently, asking more questions, putting more effort into their work. And this honesty will bring a clearer vision of what's important to you, your feelings and emotions, what stresses you're experiencing and why, your purpose in life, bringing you better communication with others and yourself to help you make better decisions. So if you're feeling down, emotional, or even highly excitable, when you're totally honest with yourself, you can begin to step out of the picture, turn around and watch the scenario from a distance and really see what has triggered those feelings and emotions. So what are the benefits of self-honesty? Well, like I've already started to say, you'll get a clearer picture of how to tackle the problems you're facing. You'll develop a better understanding of yourself, a clearer view of how you can manage difficult situations, and a clearer vision of where you want to be and how you want to be feeling. But first of all, you need to start asking yourself some questions. What is it I'm really feeling? Where have these emotions really come from? What are the real benefits to having these feelings and emotions? So that you can start to understand, what are you going to do with them? Are you going to put them in order and change things, or let them continue as they are? So that you can begin to start managing situations more effectively to work towards an end goal that you truly want. And with these questions answered, having a more honest approach to yourself, you will be in a better position to start mapping out the steps for your future. So, another question for you. And I'd like you to grade this question from 0 to 10, and 10 being the hardest. How hard do you find it to be totally honest with yourself? Looking at your self-honesty will give you a clearer picture of your outlook on life, what is important to you and why it's important to know these. And knowing your values is important because it will help you to make the right choices. When I work with my clients, it usually takes around 6 weeks to cover my whole course, but I want to share a few of these things with you today. So we'll begin with looking at values. So values are things that are important to us, and these things might be family, friends, work, fitness, health, holidays, for example. And these sorts of values are what are called mean values. They're chunk words. They tend to be physical things and can be changeable. And although we might think we know these, it's always important to check every so often so that you can have a full understanding of them. So what I'd like you to do is to write down your 5 mean values, the ones that are most important to you. So hopefully by now you've got your 5 mean values written down. But the next step is to really get an even clearer view of what they mean to you. And this is about looking at them a little bit more closely to find out what we get from those mean values. And what we get from those mean values are what are called core values. So for example, if family and friends are a couple of your mean values, you might get love, honesty, trust, respect, stability, security, and that's just to name a few from those mean values. So What I'd like you to do now is to write down your 5 most important core values. So your core values are what you get from your mean values. And to help you do this, I've put together a range of different core values, ones that you might not immediately think of, so that you can get a clearer picture. So hopefully by now you've got your top 5 core values. And it's important to understand what these values mean to you, so you can check in on them in times of difficulty, or when you're having to make a difficult decision, or even a lifestyle change. And you can look back at your values and see how they're serving you, whether you're working in alignment with them. So, for example, if family is one of your main values, with core values of love, stability and honest. If, for example, you are deciding to take a new job, a job you've always dreamed of. However, when you start to look into it, you find that you have to work longer hours, maybe work away from home, or perhaps spending a lot more time travelling. How is this going to affect your family? Yes, you might be more financially stable, but will it allow you to give the quality of time to your family and share the love that you have for them? And being able to answer these questions honestly will give you a clear indication of what decision you need to make. Let me give you another example. A person, let's call him John, might not be happy with the way the company he works for is being run and the way they conduct themselves. To digress slightly, my husband a long while back now was having to apply for jobs and go to interviews when he was made redundant, and sometimes he wouldn't hear from the company even for them to say, sorry, you didn't get the job. But very quickly he realised that not getting that job wasn't worth worrying about, because he didn't want to work for people who treated others in that way. So getting back to John again, for John, this actually may be a difficult decision for him to make, because he might actually enjoy the job he does, but the reason he's feeling uncomfortable is that his values don't match up with the values of the company. But what John needs to do is to start asking himself some questions. So he might have to ask himself, how well can I adjust to these values? And if not, what's the best course of action? It may be that John decides he wants to position himself within the company where he can have an influence over how the company runs. Or if he can't adjust to the values, decide to look for another job. I don't know whether you've got children. I've got 2. And when they were little, at one stage I felt as if all I was doing was arguing with them and getting angry for their bad behaviour. And on making this remark to my husband, he said that I was getting angry with them very quickly for what he could see were trivial things. And at the time, this was hard for me to swallow, but it made me look within myself to find out where the problem was. And sure enough, almost immediately that I changed my attitude and my actions, my children's reactions also change. So I often refer back to this situation when I'm in times of doubt about a relationship or something's going on, to really find out what's happening. So another question for you. What one thing can you change within yourself to change the pattern of your ripple effect? I'll just repeat that. What one thing can you change within yourself to change the pattern of your ripple effect? So the way we communicate is vital for our outcomes in life and for our future. But before I talk more about this, I'd like you to have a little think about how we communicate and listen, because of course communication is a two-way process. So in terms of good communication, what does the average person listen to or connect with when picking up on information? And if you just have a little look at the pie chart there on your screen, you'll notice you've got 3 parts of the pie and 3 labels. And I just want to touch on this, so that 7% of picking up information is actual words. 38% is tone of voice, but a whopping 55% for body language. And when we are communicating with people, it's very easy to change the words that we say, but a lot more difficult to change our tone of voice and our body language, and even more difficult to put all three together convincingly. And a great way to experiment with this is when you're watching your favourite drama or your soap opera, just turn the sound down and see if you can work out what's happening by just watching the body language. When I go to the gym, I never take my headphones with me, but a great programme to watch like this is the Jeremy Kyle show, and the facial expressions and the hand gestures and general body language is absolutely fascinating. And I also love the movies, and I love a movie with substance, something that will give me an emotion, to shock me, make me laugh, make me cry, make me want to stand up and shout at the screen. And great actors will give me that because they get so involved and so in touch with the character that they're playing that they're able to put all three communication techniques together successfully. If you think back to John Wayne, he only ever played John Wayne. He never changed his accent or played a different role. But Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep, for example, they are able to change their whole state so that they can make the character that they are portraying totally believable. So when we're talking about good communication, it isn't only about with other people, it's also about within ourselves. To not only take notes and being listened to what we're saying to ourselves, but also tapping into how we're saying it. And doing this will help you understand what it is you're really feeling, how this feeling is making you act, and how it affects other people around you. And if you don't like what you're hearing inside your head, then what do you want to hear instead? How do you want to put yourself across? How do you want other people to react to you? Because feelings breed more feelings within ourselves and in other people. And I'm sure we've all experienced in times, sometimes in our life, how one individual can change the whole atmosphere in a room. But before we go any further, I'd like to tell you a little story. And this is a true story about a gentleman who I've helped recently. And he'd got himself into a bad way. And to block out the unhappiness he was feeling, he started to drink. And at a very young age, at about the age of 12 years old. And he couldn't seem to do anything right to please his father, who was a very traditional Asian man. And he used to get scolded for being in the kitchen and helping his mother. And eventually this turned into physical abuse. And the drinking helped him to forget the abuse and made him feel happier. But unfortunately, he followed in his father's footsteps and got a jail sentence for GBH towards his wife. Now, he could understand why his wife reported him, why she left him taking the children. But it wasn't until he could see that the original problem was related to his father. Even though he dried out whilst in jail, he was still allowing his father's words to affect him. And when this client of mine began to be totally honest with himself, he began to realise that he couldn't change his past, but needed to start changing his thought process and his focus. So he began focusing on his future. And I remember him saying to me that even though he's Asian, he's also European, and he wants to be true to himself, to support his wife in all sense of the word by doing the dishes, helping to cook the meals and look after the children. And only doing this is he true to himself, true to his values in life. And this reality has made him think differently about his life. He now feels like his heart has got light in it. And even though he's still in jail, he feels happier and very positive and feels as if he's taken 100 steps forward. Because of this level of honesty this client of mine has undertaken, he's really been able to face up to the decisions he is now making in his life. He knows he'll never be in contact with his family, but he also knows what sort of a husband and father he will be. So, how can self-honesty unlock the way to a brighter and happier future? Well, you'll be more understanding of yourself and others. You'll have a clearer vision of your life. You'll have a better understanding of your strengths. You'll be able to set great goals for yourself to work with and find the right support network to achieve everything that you want. Now, during the last few slides, we've been looking at the importance of values in life and how you can use them. A good communication with others as well as yourself, and a better understanding of your feelings and emotions. However, there are a lot of other things that are needed to support you being able to succeed, which we haven't got time to go into at the moment, but my course covers understanding your stresses and how it affects you and your outcomes, more about your personal identity and how to build self-esteem, and making better decisions in your life. But before we go any further, I'd like to ask you a few questions. What are you struggling with at the moment? How is it affecting you and your life? What is it making you feel like? What is stopping you from resolving these? And what is it stopping you from accomplishing that's new in your life? So, how would you like to be instead? What will life be like for you if you could resolve these struggles? How will it affect the important people in your life? And what is it going to cost you if you don't resolve them? Fiona is a lady I've worked with recently, and here's what she says about working with us and make the change. We all go through life and appreciate the good times, but inevitably there are times when we struggle. Working with Cath helped me to unravel the complexities of life's problems and how to deal with them. It showed me how to value myself and understand the impact of stress on my physical and mental well-being. It showed me how to work out who I really was, giving me the confidence and building on my self-esteem so that I could make the changes to transform my life. Cath has helped me to be a stronger person, more able to cope and make the changes I really wanted for a happier and healthier life. And we're coming nearer to the end of the recording now, but I'd like to share one more thing with you before I leave you. Unfortunately, most of us aren't very nice to ourselves most of the time. Just imagine for a moment if you weren't very nice to your best friend, what would happen? Most probably that best friend would eventually turn around you and say, you know what, I don't want to be your friend any longer because you're not very nice to me and I deserve better than that. And this is going to be the same for ourselves as well. So it's important to remember to listen to your thoughts, feelings, ideas and opinions. Because until you listen, you won't know what you really want. Forgive yourself, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We do make mistakes. We do make bad decisions or have a relapse if we're trying to change a lifestyle. So be kinder to yourself and praise yourself. We all need this to be able to keep ourselves moving forwards, to strive for the next milestone in our life. Even if it hasn't gone perfectly, pinpoint what went well. Work out why it went well so that you can replicate it again and celebrate it. I hope that you found this introduction useful and you'd like to find out more about how we can support you in becoming happier, more positive and effective. Then follow the link and send me a message. But my final message to you is, and that is how change happens. One gesture, one person, one moment in time. leave me a message so that we can work together.